when you start describing yourself beyond the role, now, how many things can fit into solution provision? How many things can you do because you are a solution provider? You can be fired from your job. Does that stop you from being a solution provider? Your business can struggle. Does that stop you from being a solution provider? You are in debt. Does that stop you from being a solution provider? But when you start identifying yourself as I'm in debt, you become, I'm just the person in debt. So we forget our identity. And this hit me one day when I was driving that car is now what? For 15 years, I'm like, Marion, I had to buy a new car this year and I was devastated about having to buy a new car. But my car literally died. It cannot be revived. It died, yeah? There was no reviving, yeah? And it was a 15-year-old car, but a couple of years ago, I was driving my car, enjoying. Any Subaru lovers in the house? Oh, yeah, so just enjoying my Subaru as one enjoys a Subaru. And even though it was 15 years old, it was still a Subaru, eh? And I was driving, and this Porsche yellow sports car came in front of me. So I'm driving this car, and so it's in front of me. I'm like, wow, great sports car. And then after a while, I suddenly realized that I've slowed down to 30 kilometers per hour. Now, imagine I have a Subaru. We don't do 30 kilometers per hour in Subarus, yeah? So before I was driving probably at 80, it was one of these roads that, it was a quiet road. I was cruising. But then this car comes in front of me. And then I realized later, oh my goodness, I've slowed down. So for 5 minutes, after a while, I was like, what is going on? Why have I slowed down? So in 2 seconds, I overtake the car. Yeah? But what did I forget in that moment when I saw the car? That I was a Subaru. Just because you're a funky sports car did not stop me from being in a Subaru, correct? Just because my car was dented and old and for 15 years old did not stop it from being a Subaru. So how many times do we forget who we are because of our circumstances? And when I look back at the 10 years of Centonomy, and one thing it has really taught me is about identity. So today I want to talk about, it's not about what is going on beside you. It's about who you are, and the biggest journey we have in this life is to understand who am I. Yeah, so that you can say, I kept the faith and I finished the race. So everybody has a race to run, and your race does not look like anybody else's. Are you actually running your race? So, my first lesson in identity. I needed to really, really get to understand identity, separate yourself from the money. We define ourselves so much by money. And I learned this lesson 2 ways. One, by understanding money does not make me happy. And then second, by saying, what has money got to do with it anyway? So let me start with money did not make me happy. The business I started, Marion, before I started doing financial planning, I was in the stockbroking industry. So my first venture into business was I went to the stockbroking industry. That was what I was employed in for a very long time. And when I decided to go into business, I said, okay, cool, this is what I know how to do. Let me start that. And we struggled for 2 years with that business. It was on, off, the same usual struggles of a startup business. Can't pay people, where are the clients? But finally, one day, we made money. And when I say money, we made serious money. We made 5 million in one transaction. 5 million, one transaction. Never happened again in my life, by the way. And this is because it was a stock market industry. At that time, what happened was the Safaricom IPO. And remember, where every man and his dog were buying Safaricom shares. Yeah, even the dog owned Safaricom shares, yeah? But the whole country was buying Safaricom shares, and banks were even lending to people for Safaricom shares. So we made money, and after that, I remember, let's not forget the debts the company had. It's just that the transaction made money. After that, I couldn't get out of bed for days. And I kept wondering, why am I so sad? So I think a couple of things first. I think it had already started hitting me while I was in that business that this is not what I want to do. I had started having conversations with people when they come to buy shares. I go deeper into the conversation and I find myself talking to them about budgeting. We talk about debt. We talk about their families. So it had started, I had started seeing this is not the business I wanted to be in. I'd also started seeing that business was really about, I tell you what to do. I'm not really good at telling people what to do. I'm good at sharing experiences so that in those experiences they discover for themselves. So I was like, no, you're calling me at 10 o'clock p.m. because KCB shares have gone down in value. You watched the news. I was like, this is actually not for me. But I guess something about that, the way we did it and the way the industry at that time handled Safaricom was against my values. Let me tell you, if you are doing something that is against your values, it does not matter how much money you make. You are not going to be happy. So someone here may need to hear that because there's a transaction in front of you where you're being told bribe or steal or do something that you know is not in line with your values. And for me, I think it was that whole thing of the concept of people who are borrowing to buy Safaricom, thinking that it's a guarantee. And I think when the price, remember if you know what happened, the price came from 5 bob to 2 bob. So at that point, if you had borrowed, because people had borrowed thinking it will go to immediately 50 shillings, then I can pay off my loan and go and smile with my big fat profits, and it didn't actually happen. And I found myself, I was in the system, and I was like, I didn't actually believe in it, yeah? So I learned, it does, even as you're in this journey of wealth creation, it's about you will thrive when you find the thing that is in line with who you are, that is in line with completely your values. Making sense? So, you can make money even if you do things that are not in line with your values. You can make money, but what will happen? You'll keep looking at the yellow sports car. Yeah? If you can make 5 million, then what will you want? 10 million. You make 10 million, what do you want? 100 million. Sometimes when you read the news, do you wonder what this billion, what did he do with the last billion? Do you sometimes wonder that when you read some of the things going on? What is it that this billion is going to do for you that other billion did not do for you? So money does not have the ability to fulfill. Money is not the life, it is a tool for the life. Yeah? Then, on the other foot, you'll be like, if you're not making the money you think you should have made, especially if you're not doing something that's in line with your gifts, your talents, your values, you'll always play victim, correct? Whose fault is it that you're not making money? Who do we blame? Sometimes someone has said ourselves, I was like, then you're way ahead. Who first do we blame? Our parents, because they should have done something. We blame our employer, we blame the government, we blame the bank. We blame usually everybody else but ourselves. Now, when you understand it is me who makes things happen, you stop blaming the world. Because you also understand whatever situation in my life that I actually don't like, I actually had a very big part to play in it. So if I want to change something, I've got to first look at myself. Yeah. So that was my first thing and saying, it's not money that's going to make me happy. So I started on the journey of saying, what is it? What is it? Where do I find happiness? Where do I find flow? And flow is when you're doing something, do you do some things and you lose track of time? Yeah? Or you finally get out of there re-energized. Yeah? And I started realizing, even in all this, I actually found joy when I was having conversations with people. So I was like, aha, my business will be conversations with people about money. Yeah? So that started the journey of Centonomy. And I think I chose that moment when the market went down to actually leave that business and actually start Centonomy. And Centonomy started Nothing. I did not have the skills, nor the resources, nor anything. All these blocks that people put in their heads. Oh, I need so much money before I can do that. I think the journey of Centonomy has busted that for me. All you need is your brain. All you need is your mind. So your primary job is my mind set on the right things? Mindset is about setting your mind onto the right things. So asking yourself, is your mind set on the right things? So the second question, I told you the first thing was, money won't make you happy. The second one is, what's money got to do with it anyway? Usually, absolutely nothing. So I started doing financial planning and I said, Marion was definitely one of my first clients. In fact, actually, Marion, one of the first 3 clients that I planned money for. And I was scared because actually between the first business and starting Centonomy was the worst financial period in my life. So can you see the irony of this? I'm starting a company to do what? To help people create wealth and plan their finances. My situation is that when I'm going to see clients, I'm calculating the fuel in the car. I'm like, whoa, lo, E on Starlet. Does that mean 3 kilometers? Will I get there? See, when you're on E, you can still peleka your car a bit, yeah? So I was like, is it 3 kilometers? Is it 5 kilometers? Is it going to get stuck somewhere? But at Go, I realized my financial situation had nothing to do with what is in my head. And this is why, because I had over time gotten to the discipline of taking my mind way ahead of my circumstances. Through what? Books. I do not care. And I think almost every speaker here has mentioned books, correct? I don't care what millennial you are, because I go to these talks and where people are like, oh, millennials don't read, and we are going to try and conform ourselves. I'm sorry, if you want to create wealth, you have to read, and 140 characters does not cut it. Yeah, there's nothing. Twitter is not reading. I read it on Twitter. No. Yeah, even if you read an inspirational 140 characters, go and look for the book that inspiration came from. If you were inspired by that statement in 140 characters, imagine what is in a full article, a full review, or a full book. I'm all okay for ebooks if you want, but read. Yeah. Another thing is seek to learn. I have probably gone for 5 courses in the journey of Centonomy. You have to seek to learn continuously. And the third thing is you have to put yourself in conversations that put your mind forward. Many times, we are putting ourselves in the wrong types of conversations. And when we talk about money, right now, what are the conversations? There is not enough. I am broke. You're prophesying over yourself that you will be broke when you call yourself broke, yeah? So you've just got to have a thirst for knowledge, because you've got to understand your number one asset is your mind. Train it and protect it with all your might, even if it means you are not going to be part of certain discussions. At Centonomy, we like calling it the poverty support group, and I'm telling you, it is time to ditch the poverty support group if you want to create wealth.